Welcome, everybody. Happy Sabbath. Did you kids have a great Thanksgiving? Raise your hand if you had a great Thanksgiving. All right, now put your hands down. Did you have a great full Thanksgiving? Ah, good. I'm glad to see you still raising your hands. You know, I was trying to think the other day. I wonder what's the difference between thankful and grateful. Doesn't it sound like that's pretty much the same thing? If you're thankful, aren't you grateful? If you're grateful, aren't you thankful? But I checked it out, and you know what? There's actually a difference. Our story today is going to have a little girl show us what the real difference is between gratefulness and thankfulness. But I'm going to tell you what the difference is first. Thankfulness is basically it's a thing that you can do really quickly. You can be thankful, kind of polite, thank you, oh thank you, thank you. It's something you can do almost automatically, and it doesn't have to really change who you are. But being grateful is feeling inside, wow, I got something I didn't deserve. Wow, I got something that was better than I hoped for. Wow, somebody did something nice for me. It's going to change how I am from now on. Now in the story today, our little girl, who's got a long name I'm going to try not to mangle, was grateful. Her name was Muka, and I'm just going to call her the shorter version of her name that her parents called her, which was Muka, because it would be very hard for me to say her full name over and over. As you might have guessed, Muka had not grown up here in the United States. She actually lived about 80 years ago in the African nation of Rwanda. And in Rwanda, there was a mission school pretty near to where Muka lived, but she never went there. Her parents didn't send her there. In fact, she never went close to there until one day she did, because she was sneaking off from home so she wouldn't have to do any work. She went sneaking away so that her mom wouldn't make her go and hoe the sweet potatoes. And as she was sneaking off, she ended up going back through some of the back bushes and through some of the back roads and ended up near the mission school, and she heard some singing going on. There were kids and adults singing songs, and she was curious. She went and she kind of sat on the outside and listened, and she heard them talking about somebody named Jesus she'd never heard of before. And then they were telling stories about how Jesus had come to earth for you, they said, for you. And Muka thought, for me? Even for me? And then how Jesus had suffered for you and died for you. And Muka thought, for me? He did that for me? And how he's coming back for you someday. And he loves you so much. And Muka loved this idea. She was just so excited by the idea that she snuck off from work again the following week. And she went back to listen. As you might have guessed from the sound of it, since Muka was sneaking off from work, she was kind of a disobedient little girl. She didn't like to obey her parents. She was also kind of dirty. Like, she never liked to do anything to clean her skin or her clothes. But after going for a few weeks to listen on the outside and listen to these stories, and then she started going into the building and getting closer and starting to learn the songs, and then looking at the pictures that the missionaries were showing of Jesus, Muka got so excited about all this and realizing that Jesus really did die for her, and he loved her, and he forgave her sins, that it started to change how Muka behaved. Her parents started noticing, hey, you know, Muka doesn't seem to sneak off from chores anymore. She does good work. And her daddy even noticed one day, Muka was asking for some soap. She never wanted soap before. She'd never wanted to take a bath before. Muka said, Daddy, could I please have some soap? And he said, what do you want soap for? I'm very curious. What are you going to do with soap? Do you even know how to use soap? She said, yes, I'm going to go down to the river and take a bath because I'm going to go to that meeting. You know the meetings that I like to go to? She had stopped sneaking off from work. She went with her parents' permission now. And her dad said, yes, what about those meetings? She said, well, I learned at those meetings that Jesus, he died for me and he loves me. And well, I just want to be clean now for him. And that's why I'm doing a good job too. I want to do good jobs for him. And her parents were so curious about this that even though they'd never had any interest in learning about Jesus before, they started going to the meetings too. And they started listening and learning the songs. And before you know it, Muka and her parents were baptized. Now, it sounds like I could just end the story right there. But this is a true story. And real things happen in true stories. And here's a real thing that happened back then. In 1943, there was a big famine in the country of Rwanda. A big famine. You know what a famine is? Is there a lot of food like there was on your Thanksgiving table? No, there was no food. There was no food because there was no rain, and so they couldn't grow anything. And people were starving. Adults were starving. Children were starving. Babies were starving. Many people were dying because they didn't have enough food to eat. Now, thankfully, Muka's parents did know someone else who had some water, access to water from a little stream, and they were able to get some water and keep their garden going with a lot of hard work, but it meant they had to be gone away from the house all day, from the early morning until late at night, to keep their garden of sweet potatoes and corn going just so they'd have enough food to survive. Their daddy had told Muka, he said, you know, we used to be sad that three little baby boys we had many years ago, they had all died when they were babies. We used to be sad about that. But now I'm not so sad because we wouldn't have enough food for them. We barely have enough for the three of us. And since Muka's parents had to be gone all day, off taking care of the garden and getting water, Muka was left in charge of one thing, the most important thing in the house, and that was their, let me not mess up the word, their kikega. Anybody have a guess as to what a kikega was? What do you think a kikega? No, you don't get to guess. You know the story. What do you think a kikega was? Not a baby. Good guess. Anybody else have one guess? I'll take one more guess. What is a kikega? Snake? Not a snake. No, they didn't have a Precious Family snake. They had a small little hut. It was smaller than the hut that they lived in. It was a small hut and it had no doors. Instead it had a little lid on the top. And it was like a little barn. They could keep things in there and the animals couldn't get into it. So her job, Muka's job, was to stay at home all day while her parents would go off to take care of the garden and guard the kikega. If anybody came by that was looking like they might try to steal the little bit of food that they had stored in their kikega, she was supposed to start yelling as loud as she could and her parents would come running from the garden. Well, Muka stayed every day faithfully by her job. She was not somebody who snuck off from her work anymore, and she stayed faithfully there, and one day she heard some movement in the bushes near the kikega, and she thought, somebody's coming, they're going to steal some food out of the kikega, I'm going to go see who it is. And she went and she looked in the bushes, aha! Oh, this person wasn't going to steal any food. This person could barely move. It was a little boy. He was only about 6 or 7 years old, and his bones were showing, and he was so hungry. And he looked up at her, and he said, I'm hungry, can I have some food? Now, Muka wanted to help him, because now Jesus had changed her heart. She wanted to help other people, but she thought to herself, oh boy, I can't give him any food from the kikega, not without permission from mommy and daddy. But they did leave me my meal for the day. She got to have one meal a day. And her one meal was, you might have had it at Thanksgiving, not turkey, sweet potato. She got 4 sweet potatoes, and they weren't even cooked. They were just raw sweet potatoes, but that's what she got for her meal every day. Her parents would leave her 4 sweet potatoes before they would go off to work in the garden. And Muka thought, oh boy, I could give him a sweet potato. I guess I could give him 1, and I could still make it on 3. She was still usually hungry at the end of the day if she had 4 sweet potatoes, so now she was going to be hungrier with 3, but she thought, I'll give him 1. So she said, just wait here. And she ran and she grabbed one of her sweet potatoes, and she brought it back to him, and she gave it to him, and he ate it so fast it was like he hadn't even chewed it. It was gone. And she said, oh, did you even chew that? He said, yes, but I was just so hungry. I haven't had anything to eat in 7 days. Have you ever gone 7 days without anything to eat? The longest I've gone without eating was probably about 10 hours, and that was after Thanksgiving meal when I just couldn't fit anything else in my stomach. And Muka realized the boy was still hungry. She thought, oh, he's still so hungry, and it's been 7 days. I'll get him another potato. So she went back and got another potato, and she brought it back. Here you go. And it was gone. And he was still looking kind of hungry. She asked him, are you feeling less hungry? He said, well, before, my stomach was touching my back like this. And now, the potatoes have put this much space. Oh, he was still really hungry. Okay, she'll give him the 3rd one. She ran back and got the 3rd potato and brought it back for him. Here you go. And what happened to it? It was gone. Are you still hungry, she thought? And Muka was kind of hoping he would say no. Muka was really kind of hoping he would say, no, I'll be okay now, because Muka was hungry and she was thinking, I only have 1 sweet potato left. But the boy, he nodded his head, I'm still hungry. And Muka almost had a selfish thought. It came into her mind for just a moment. You don't have to tell him how many sweet potatoes you have left. You can just say, that's all the sweet potatoes we have, too bad. But then she thought of something else. Jesus went hungry for me. Jesus suffered for me. And she ran and she got the other sweet potato. And as she came back, she said under her breath, this one's for you, Jesus. And she gave it to the little boy, and he ate it down. The little boy, whose name was Igurube, ended up staying the rest of the day there. And at the end of the day, Muka thought, oh, I don't want to chase him away, but my parents said we don't have enough food for anybody else but the 3 of us. How can I help this little boy? My parents can't take him to be their little boy. I know. And even though Muka was probably only about 8 or 9 years old, she said to the little 6-year-old boy, you can be my son. I'll share my food with you, but my parents can't know that you're here because they don't think we have enough food. So you can hide inside the kikega. You can crawl inside the basket where we store our food, and you can sleep there at night. And I'll give you my only blanket to keep you warm, and then I'll sneak you some food every day. And do you know, for weeks, that's what Muka did? Even though Muka only got 4 sweet potatoes a day, she would give him 2 over sweet potatoes. And she would let him have her only blanket, even though that meant that she was cold at night. And this went on for weeks, until finally one day, I don't know if Igurube wasn't paying attention or something, but he climbed out of the kikega a little too early that morning, and her parents were still there, and they looked and they saw, who's that coming out of the kikega? It's a thief, go get him. She said, no, don't get him. That's my little boy. How do you have a little boy? And Muka explained the whole story to her parents, and her daddy said, you were giving half of your food away to this little boy? You were giving him your blanket even though it made you cold at night? Why would you do that? And you know the answer she gave is what it means to be grateful. She said, well, Jesus did all of those things and more for me, so why shouldn't I do it for him? That's what being grateful is. To let what someone else did for you change you to be so grateful for what someone did for you that you want to help others too. Let's not forget that. This is an important time of year to show that, but we should show that all year long. Let's say a quick prayer. Thank you, dear Heavenly Father, that you sent your Son down here to this earth. But we don't want to just say thank you and then move on. We want to be grateful for it. Help it to change our lives. Help us to show it in how we act to others. We love you. Amen. Amen. You may go back to your seats. And if you want to read that story and others, this book is down in the children's library, Campfire Tales from Africa. You can get it there.